excited to be talking about this topic. I've been looking forward to making a video kind of breaking down the different types of skincare. I spent 27 years, almost 28 now, in the beauty industry, focusing primarily in skincare, specializing in sensitive skin. I'm double skincare certified. My name is Nadia, founder of the concept of functional beauty and the beautydoctrine.com, where beauty meets health. That's where you get to learn about how to get your very best skin without interventions. So throughout my career, I've spent thousands upon thousands of hours on department store floors, at Sephora, Ulta, you name it. I've traveled, I was head of global education, I was VP of sales, I worked in corporate offices. I've done it all when it comes to the beauty industry. And before I decided to become the consumer's guide, that way you get the real scoop, not the stuff that is put together by marketing teams. And yes, a lot of it is actually marketing. Most of what you think you know about skincare, most of what I knew for a long time, it was determined by marketing. So I want you to put that critical hat on and let's get straight into the facts. Let's start with French skincare brands. I think it's a good place to start. It makes sense because so many of the skincare and beauty brands out there, if you walk into any department stores in the US and across the globe, you're gonna see that it's dominated by French brands. And so if you're thinking Lancôme, L'Occitane, Caudalie, La Prairie, of course, brands that are made by big fashion houses like Chanel, Dior, you get the point. So in my experience, the first focus I've seen, from French brands, it's really on luxury more than anything. So the formulation, the results are secondary. So you are sold generally on the packaging, on the fragrance, on the sensorial experience. Everything has to be really light and beautiful. And there's nothing wrong with that, except light, luxurious, beautiful, smells good, all comes with a cost. So there's always a trade-off. So I want to break down what that means when it comes to skincare. If you want to make a product that smells great, you have two options. Option number one is to use synthetic fragrances, which generally are very problematic. I don't think there is a synthetic scent that's not problematic. A lot of times those scents have fixatives, often called phthalates. Those phthalates are hormonal disruptors, which is not to be taken lightly. They can really wreak havoc on your health and your hormones. Hormones are what keeps all of our body in balance. If there's any type of imbalance within our body, that's usually where diseases start. And this includes the skin. Aging is heavily impacted by hormones. I'm sure you've heard of hormonal acne, for example. You get acne because there is an increase in a certain hormone. We lose collagen because of a decrease in a certain hormone. For example, at menopause, women lose up to 30% of their collagen because they're losing estrogen. The second way to make a product smell great is to add essential oils. And so that is what a lot of the natural brands are using as a substitute to hormonal disrupting fragrances. However, many of them are missing the mark because, again, there's so much focus on the formula. They're like, how do we make this moisturizer or serum or cleanser smell good, right? We want it to be sensorial because consumers are really used to that experience. And I've seen this myself, having worked in beauty departments my entire adult life. The first thing that consumers do when you hand them a moisturizer, for example, they open it and smell it. And so there's that expectation that the product has to smell back to natural scents. And so the issue with essential oils is that a lot of them are very volatile. They're active, they're powerful. And I want you to stop thinking about powerful as something that's going to deliver good skin, because that's another word that's being used so much in the cosmetic industry. It's like 10 times more powerful than this, or like the most powerful formula, or no, we don't need powerful anything to take care of skin. We actually need the opposite. We need gentle formulations to take care of skin. All right, so back to the essential oils. I always digress. They should not be in our skincare, especially citrus oils. Citrus, I have such an issue with because citrus is linked to hyperpigmentation, sensitivity, and I'm somebody that's really sensitive, so I gonna steer away from citrus as much as I can. I don't have a huge issue with several other essential oils because they can serve a purpose as long as they are really light, right? If you go ahead and try to smell product, for example, if you barely experience a scent, that's an indication that the essential oils that might show up on your ingredient list, the concentration is very, very low. So you might not see a reaction from it. The issue is when you smell it, you're applying a product or you're smelling it from the jar and it's actually, you can tell, oh, this smells like peppermint, or peppermint is another one that's problematic. So citrus, peppermint, and like cinnamon. Cinnamon can be really, really aggravating to the skin. Another thing to be careful of when it comes to essential oils specifically is lavender when it comes to males, because lavender is very estrogenic, and so that's going to increase the female hormone within their bodies, especially if you're, let's say, a mom and you have little boys that you're taking care of, you're always around them, you're hugging them and kissing them, and you're wearing all these lavender scents or applying skincare with lavender. That's something to definitely watch out for. So with all of that being said, this makes it very difficult to actually find a product that's gonna work, that's going to feel good and smell good and not irritate you. And so the rule of thumb for me, I look at the sum of all the products that I'm using. So if my routine consists of 6 or 7 products every day, I'm reading all of the ingredient lists and I'll kind of make a judgment call. If there are maybe 2 or 3 essential oils at a very low concentration, they're not pungent in the product, I probably, I would use the product if I like it, if I like a lot of other aspects in it. But I would skip citrus for sure, especially during the day. That's where I draw the line typically, is citrus and cinnamon. So before we continue with this video, I want to clarify that my purpose here, my goal is not to vilify these brands. My goal is to educate you so that you can make an informed decision. So this means if there is a moisturizer you love and it has fragrance and whatever, toxins, and you love it, as long as you know what's in there, that's great. And maybe you could go with a cleaner cleanser or a scent-free serum, or, for example, sunscreen. Sunscreen is the big one. If you were to make one change in your skincare routine, go with a sunscreen that does not have citrus. It makes no sense to me whatsoever when brands create an actual sunscreen which is designed to protect you from the sun and from getting hyperpigmentation, that actually has ingredients in it that promote hyperpigmentation. It's mind-boggling to me. So that I just wanted to clarify that point. So knowledge is power. So I'm here to give you that knowledge, and then you make informed decisions as you shop for your products. So that was my feedback on French brands in general, according to my extensive experience in the field. If you know of a French skincare brand, obviously the market is saturated right now. It's so hard to keep up with everything. So if you know of one that you love, that works for you, and maybe is fragrance-free, please share with us. That's what this channel is all about. It's about education, and there's no better education than from your own personal stories. It's your experience, it's what worked and what didn't. And so I would love to create that community that's really engaged, where we're all learning from each other. All right, so now we're gonna get to American skincare, and we'll finish with Korean, because Korean gets so much hype. So I have a couple of things to say about that, but let's get to American skincare. So I find that the common denominator in the majority of American skincare brands is, well, aside from the new kind of movement of natural brands, but just the core or the heritage brands that you find that have been out there on the market for years now. The common denominator very often is this like notion that it's so powerful, it's clinical, dermatologist tested, or dermatologist approved, or cosmeceutical, all these terms, professional grade, all these terms mean nothing. I will repeat, all these terms mean nothing. And so when you see a medical grade product, unless it's prescription, the only prescription would be certain vitamin A's like tretinoin. Outside of that, If a gentle skincare brand is able to use glycolic acid, for example, so is a cosmeceutical brand. Cosmeceutical brand, generally speaking, or doctor's brand, or clinical brand, a professional brand, they're just taking that glycolic acid and using it at a really high concentration. So you actually put it on and you're red and inflamed and you're like, okay, it's working. It's peeling my skin off or whatever it is. And that is the opposite of what you want to do. We've been literally brainwashed into thinking that the skin, if the skin burns, it means it's working, or the more power, the better. No, the more power is just the more irritation. I mean, the most you could achieve with very powerful skincare is typically more exfoliation. You just get different levels of peeling in the skin. And so when you're peeling the skin, if this is the wrinkle, you'll see less of that depth. But again, that comes at a cost. And it's a very superficial and narrow-minded way of thinking about skin renewal, because instead of just removing layers of skin by causing irritation and sensitivity long-term, and I find this in my personal experience as well as my clients' experience, you will pay later, because you get to a point when you're going too aggressive, too active, medical grade and all this, at some point your body is just going to reject that. It's too much for the skin. You've stripped your skin of those natural oils. You've compromised your protective lipid barrier. Now the skin is just vulnerable. It's prone to skin conditions. You could develop rosacea, dermatitis, all kinds of issues. Sunburns really easily if you're not really diligent with your sunscreen and so on and so forth. And so more powerful is not necessarily better. And that tends to be a huge focus in American skincare and skincare culture. There is such a thing that's very narrowly focused on actives. And a big example of this, I've seen it so much, I didn't quite understand it. When I first moved to the US from Morocco and I was working in the beauty industry, and I had a lot of clients that would come in, I was a makeup artist. And so I would have 17-year-olds that would come in for their, prom makeup or whatever. And then I would notice they have lines, and it never made any sense to me. Like my mother at the time, you have Moroccan women, and I'm sure all over the world, also in many, many cultures, women hit 50, 60, and they still have not experienced their first wrinkle. And here I'm noticing, teenagers having wrinkles, and that is because of, starting them with this really aggressive skincare. You see your first pimple, and then you run out and get, at the time, I don't know if they still make this brand, but it was Proactive. I worked at the mall, and when, I would ask, what's your skincare, routine? It's, oh, I have this system. And so when you look at Proactive, for example, cleanser, toner, serum, moisturizer, whatever, the entire routine is based on benzoyl peroxide. Like, why do you need a drying and aggressive ingredient throughout? So you're applying it over and over and over again in so many layers on the skin. It makes no sense. And so what you're doing at that point, you're just depleting your skin's natural moisture. And I always say this, anytime you're fighting acne, if you're trying to dry it out, you're creating a wrinkle. So you have to pick. So either have dried up skin with no pimples, but lots of wrinkles down the road, or figure out on how to minimize acne, figure out what is the culprit, why do you have it in the first place, and address that. And those causes are typically very, very simple and really easily managed. But the American skincare focuses so much on just treating the symptom rather than the root cause. So I really hope that that's something that I'm able to change with the functional beauty movement. So I hope that I talked you out of feeling the necessity to use actives in all of your skincare products day in and day out, even just a little bit. Even if I didn't even talk you out of it and maybe you're just thinking about it, that is a huge win in my book. So moving from one skincare philosophy in the US that focuses so much on correcting, I guess overcorrecting is probably a better term, moving to Korean skincare, which focuses more on prevention. And that is the way to go. Except again, because it's a commercial environment, brands are out there to make profit. So what we tend to see in the Korean skincare culture is that skincare companies are taking all the credit for why Korean women have amazing skin. That is not why Korean women have amazing skin. It's not because of Korean skincare. It's because of the Korean culture. It's because of the focus on prevention, on gentle formulations. There are hardly any exfoliants and scrubs and all these aggressive things. And there is a phenomenal diet that's rich in probiotics naturally, prebiotics, collagen. I mean, collagen is part of a daily diet. When you consume fish with the bones and the skin and all these broths that are really healthy and hydrating. And so there are so many different aspects just in Korean culture that automatically amount to great skin, because those are the day in and day out habits that really create health and create that glow. And then there is the fact that the focus actually on prevention. So sunscreen is applied to little children. So, before heading to school, you gotta wear your sunscreen. That's just part of the culture. And prevention is the very best way to have good skin. And so you're not causing so much destruction in the first place. Like I was saying earlier, here in the US, there is a lot of just aggressive ingredients. When you get a blemish, you automatically just want to remove the blemish and you zoom in. You want to just focus on that. And you're punishing the whole face for the one blemish. So no need to change your entire skincare routine and start scrubbing and peeling and things like that because you have one blemish. Your entire face is being negatively affected. So you get the point. I think I've talked enough about that. Back to Korean skincare. Korean skincare culture does not focus so much on correcting that one blemish. It's about harmony, it's about balance, and again, it's about prevention. So that is why a lot of Korean women have phenomenal skin and glass skin. It's those variables together. So common ingredients that you see in Korean skincare is fermented formulations. You see ginseng, you see aloe vera, centella asiatica, tea. So all these things are really high in antioxidants and have soothing properties that complement the skin, soothe it, hydrate it, and so on and so forth. Now, where kind of the miss is with Korean skincare, especially in the last 5-6 years, when there was a rise of really kind of capitalizing the beauty of Korean women's skin. So a lot of these brands started saying you need the 10-step routine, the 20-step routine. You need to 5 different lotions. And you see all these influencers just patting all of these toners on. That is a big issue, because anytime you are looking at a liquid, so you're packing a ton of different liquidy solutions on, just know that that liquid needs lots of preservatives. And that's what I see whenever I review Korean toners, essences, all these water-based formulations. You'll see water or like fermented tea, for example, and then second ingredient is going to be a really powerful preservative, because water needs a certain amount of preservatives to protect the formula from growing mold. And that's where the issue comes, because you're applying that on your skin every day in so many different layers. Now those preservatives are going to start breaking up your lipid barrier, causing sensitivity in the long term. A lot of people don't realize that a product that they could be using with no issue whatsoever for a month, 2-3 months, can actually, they can become sensitized to it, or it can at some point cause issues, but they blame those issues. They don't connect the dot. They blame those issues on their newest foundation or something else, because they're like, oh no, I've used this product for a long time. It's worked for me. I never had an issue. And so, and most of us use multiple products, not quite realize that it is that accumulation of all of those water-based formulations that are very high in preservatives that are causing an issue for the skin. The other thing I see with Korean skincare, very similar actually to French skincare, is the focus on the sensorial experience. So everything has to be really lightweight. There are scents in there. So those are things that I definitely caution against. There are some brands recently that have come to the market that have kind of Korean principles, but also they have cleaner formulations. So I feel like we're starting to see some progress progress in that regard. I really hope that it has something to do with that, because I'm very, very critical of these ingredients, of, especially fragrance and high amounts of preservatives. So hopefully the beauty industry starts changing and taking skin health and compatibility of skincare with human skin, which was not really a focus for many years. The focus has always been beautiful formulations, as if we're looking at like a piece of jewelry or even makeup. Those are different. I mean, there are certain things that you'd want to be beautiful, stunning, whatever, but skincare, the primary function, it should be for it to be compatible with human skin. You should be able to tolerate it for the long term, and it should be able to work for you. And then the scent and the sensorial and that lightweight texture, all those things should be secondary to the function of that skincare and compatibility with your skin. So I'm very curious to hear from you what brands you're using. The market in the beauty industry is so vast, and obviously there are brands that I'm not familiar with. I speak from my own personal experience, having worked with and consulted for a lot of different brands. So let me know what you're using. What have I missed? Are there any amazing French, Korean, or American brands that I have missed that maybe are not using as much fragrance or as many preservatives and so on and so forth? What's working for you? This is a channel that is open for everybody to come in and learn. So I want to learn from you the same way that I hope that you're learning from me, and we need to learn from each other. The very best indicator of anything working or not is the collective experience. So please share your favorite brands, your recommendations, or if you're curious about certain products that you want me to check out or review, just let me know and I'll do it happily. So I look forward to hearing from each and every one of you, and until next time, be well, be safe, be beautiful.